United States?
I've been keeping an eye on certain pastors since the 2020 election took place because I could see a real cult forming around Trump. I don't mean a pretend cult, I mean a full-blown religious cult, and he was doing everything he could to encourage it. So there's this pastor named Hank Kunneman. I've talked about him a couple times before. He's pretty good buds with Kenneth Copeland, but he released some interesting clips recently, so I figured we'd take a look at him. Let's get into it. For context, the clip we're about to watch released about a month ago. Let's watch.
Now remember, President Trump won the election. And so for people to say, well, people prophesied that he'd win. He did win. And so we had a stolen election. And so the month of March has had a lot to celebrate. President Trump is not going anywhere. He's launched a media website that you can go to and begin to receive information. He's re-engaging himself. And you're not, listen, if you don't like President Trump, that's your problem because he's not done talking. And God's not done with him.
Oh, please, not a media website. Make note of how he's talking about Trump. He's referring to him as somebody special, somebody who has a special role to play in the world. This guy prophesied that Trump would be reelected by God. God was going to put him in power for another term. Another example of a pastor writing a check with his mouth he couldn't cash. But these people have completely worked Trump into their theology. This isn't just a cult. This has become a religious cult with Trump as the leader. I honestly thought Trump would go away after a while, but I don't think he's going anywhere. I think he's so thoroughly worked into their theology at this point that there's no way to untangle far-right evangelicalism from Trump specifically. Let's keep watching.
There's a destination that God is trying to get us to understand, and it has to do with not man's timing, it has to do with the Lord's timing. And I constantly get people texting me, and ask me questions. Well, when do you think this is going to be? That's going to be, and they throw out all these dates. And I've told them every time, that's not the date. You're putting your own interpretation on it. And they say, well, Hank, do you know the date? No, but we can know times and seasons. And so I will say it this way. I'm sensing very strongly by the signs that God is giving that we're going to review that we are close to justice and righteousness being established.
Justice and righteousness, of course, means that Trump is installed as the permanent leader of the U.S. This is end-time stuff he's talking about. He believes that Trump is supposed to be the political leader that guides God's people through the tribulation. Honestly, I have no idea how they came up with this conclusion about one of the least religious presidents the U.S. has ever had. Trump obviously never cared about anything or anybody but himself. I'm genuinely surprised they can't see that, but I digress. Let's continue.
What we cannot do is try to, quit, give up, point the finger, and then begin to think, well, you know what, all of this was just a smokescreen. No, that's what the enemy wants. Because it's a sad day if all of God's messengers, prophets, intercessors, Christians were somehow wrong, and the fake news that we know have been fake news were the voice of truth. I don't think so.
And there's his attempt to cover up his fuck-up. He prophesied that his political candidate would win, claimed that God told him that he would, and he failed. Now you have two options. You can either admit you were wrong and don't make stupid, falsifiable prophecies anymore, or you can quadruple down and claim you were right all along. But somehow, Joe Biden, an 80-year-old dude, is more powerful than God himself. I guess they prefer the latter option. Anyways, he released another clip less than a week ago, so let's give that one a watch.
We got people attacking the most pro-life president in the history of our nation.
Right.
Okay, he was a friend of the church. Okay, he fought for your religious liberties, but you don't like his tweets. Okay, you know what I liked about his tweets? Is somebody was standing up for goodness sake and calling out the nonsense. Yeah, could he maybe have used a different way of doing things? I don't know. That's between him and whoever counsels him.
Okay, let's set aside the idea that he was a friend of the church or pro-life, because I get the impression he only espoused those positions because it won him votes. But again, I digress. Next, let's take a look at some of his best tweets, because it sounds to me like Kunneman has no problem with what Trump tweeted. His only problem is how bad it might have made Trump look. Before we continue, I want to mention something. If you like what I do and you want to see me continue to do it, you can support me in a few ways. First, there's Patreon. That's probably the best way. But if you want to get something back for your support, you can check out my Teespring or my Etsy shop. I sell all kinds of cool stuff on Etsy, including game and controller stands for every system from the Atari to the Nintendo Switch. So give it a look. You might find something you like. Okay, let's continue. When we left off, we were looking at some deranged Trump tweets. Let's see here. Some of Trump's best tweets. Here's one. You guys remember Sharpiegate? The time Trump insisted that Hurricane Dorian was going to hit Alabama with absolutely no evidence. He refused to admit he was wrong, so he went as far as to draw on an official map with a Sharpie to make it look like Dorian was going further inland than it was. He said, in addition to Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, and Alabama will most likely be hit much harder than anticipated, looking like one of the largest hurricanes ever. Already Category 5. Be careful. God bless everyone. Dude was an embarrassment. He couldn't admit when he was wrong, just like Hank Kunneman. But that one isn't really fucked up. It's just stupid. How about this one? Trump was impeached, and during the impeachment trial, he started committing witness intimidation against one of the impeachment witnesses, Marie Yovanovitch. She was the ambassador to Ukraine, and the fact that she was testifying against him pissed him off so much that he tweeted, "Everywhere Marie Yovanovitch went turned bad. She started off in Somalia. How did that go?" Then fast forward to Ukraine, where the new Ukrainian president spoke unfavorably about her in my second phone call with him. It is a U.S. president's absolute right to appoint ambassadors, i.e., if she doesn't shut up, then he's going to fire her. Or what about the time he said, the members of the squad came from countries whose governments are a complete and total catastrophe, the worst, most corrupt, and inept anywhere in the world. If you're unaware, the squad is a group of congressmen who Trump absolutely could not stand. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, and Rashida Tlaib. It's expanded to 6 members now, but those were the key members at the time. Ocasio-Cortez is from the Bronx, New York City. That's America. And yes, I agree. At that time, at least, the government was a complete and total catastrophe. Ayanna Pressley was born in Cincinnati, Ohio. Rashida Tlaib was born in Detroit, Michigan. The only one of the 4 who wasn't born in the U.S. is Ilhan Omar, so I'm not sure what he was getting at with that one. What about the time Trump tweeted a classified picture of an Iran disaster? Oops, another stupid one. He said the United States was not involved in the catastrophic accident during final launch preparations for the safer SLV launch at Seminar Launch Site 1 in Iran. I wish Iran best wishes and good luck in determining what happened at Site 1. Genius. If you don't want another country to suspect you had something to do with it, then probably try not to tweet out pictures of the disaster that we aren't even supposed to have. Half of those were really fucked up tweets, half were just fucking stupid. And there are way more fucked up tweets to examine, but we only have so much time in the day. The point is that Hank Kunneman gave his check mark of approval on all of them based on what he said in the clip, and that's an embarrassment. Anybody who doesn't see a problem with some of the fucked up stuff Trump said on Twitter is either blind or a monster themselves. Let's continue with the Kunneman clips.
You don't dedicate the National Day of Prayer.
Come on.
It's going to be interesting if this thing goes this long, if we're even going to have a National Day of Prayer.
Right.
It'll be really interesting. How many times did he talk about the Lord? And yet Christians are now, we are evangelicals for B. No, you're evangelicals for D. Democratic, devilish, liberal, socialistic ideas that want to take and shut down your church that you say you love, your Jesus that you say you worship.
So I guess the guy believes that the end is so close that we aren't even going to make it another week. Remember, this clip released around April 28th. The National Day of Prayer is on May 6th. That's about a week away from when this clip came out. And I got the impression that he dedicated the National Day of Prayer to getting Trump reinstated as president. Am I reading this right? Aside from that, nobody is interested in shutting down any churches. That's never been on anybody's agenda, including mine. And I'm an atheist. He's just fear-mongering, plain and simple. He's getting his audience's persecution complex worked up. The persecution complex is a necessary part of every cult. They need to be hated by society. They need to be mistreated. And when they're the majority privileged group in a country, they have to fabricate persecution, which is what we're watching take place. Let's continue.
That want to take and shut down your church that you say you love, your Jesus that you say you worship. Well, Pastor, I don't believe that. Look at the executive orders. Look at their agenda. Jesus said, you know them by their fruits.
Wait, are they about to give us examples? Please, lay them on me. I am all ears. What are the executive orders and agendas that people are trying to push through that tell you any political leader in the country wants to take away your church or your Jesus? The next words out of his mouth had better be an example, or I'm going to start to wonder if he's completely full of shit.
And I think if you were to put the fruits of 45 and the fruit of B together, you would see where God stands on the issue. So don't be ignorant.
Well, check that shit out. The next words out of his mouth weren't policy positions or examples of executive orders to shut down church and Jesus. In fact, he didn't list them at all in the entire sermon. Big surprise. Anyways, as I said, the clip came out about a week ago. It was brand new. The next clip I wanted to watch came out about a week before that, so 2 weeks ago. Let's check it out.
And so we're being awakened. Wow, this is what socialism looks like. I've been to Russia. I've been to Ukraine. I've been to Siberia. I've been to communist nations. I've been to those in South America, Central America. And I'm telling you, the United States, we don't understand what their agenda is, but we're being awakened to it pretty quick. And there's a lot of people that voted for the Bidenite. The Bidenites are about to be removed, right? God's going to eliminate the Canaanites, the termites, and the Bidenites.
What does he mean when he says, this is what socialism looks like? What does socialism look like? He's never specific about this stuff. He vaguely gestures at things and tries his hardest to scare the shit out of old white people by using disturbing buzzwords like socialism and communism. But did you hear what he said at the end there? Listen again.
God's going to eliminate the Canaanites, the termites, and the Bidenites.
God's going to eliminate the Bidenites, quote unquote. I'm pretty comfortable making the logical leap that he means non-Trump voters. Seriously, if this kind of thing doesn't convince you that Trump is part of their theology now, I don't know what will. He's their savior, their prophet, their messiah, the person who will save them from, shit, what's the term I'm looking for?
I was asking the Lord about it. He hadn't told me. And I was like, Lord, you still haven't showed me. And then on March, right when I'm saying that, I have this, it's not an open vision, but it was a vision. And in the vision, I see this circular mountain that goes up, and there's a path all the way up. And at the top is Donald Trump, and he's on a motorcycle. And so I was like, Lord, as I'm saying that, the first thing he said is, he is going to save you from things you don't know you need to be saved from yet.
Things you don't know you need to be saved from yet. Trump is their new messiah. It has crossed from a political position to a religious cult. And we're going to have to grapple with this mass delusion as a society sooner or later.